And now we will go to the after show. Normally, Clark Kooning MMR will take over and do the after show. But Clark is on vacation this week and not going to be with us. So you're stuck with me again for the after show. So let me start the after show with, what did you think about tonight's show? What did you think about the hobby shop discussion that we have?
That was a great show, Jim. I enjoyed it. Al's presentation and the hobby shop, his being a modeler and being in the NMRA himself, and is a different approach. But, just tracking down what people, talking to the customers and finding out what they want. And I think that's good. We used to have a model shop here in London, Ontario, which is a 2-hour drive for me. There's lots of hobby shops closer, but I used to go there because he was in an old scale railway club in town also himself. And so talking to some of the guys, they'd ask something, him to order something like maybe fine scale miniature castings and things like that, small stuff. But so instead of just filling that order for him, he'd go and get a couple of more on the premises that as soon as that guy went to the club, look what I picked up. Somebody else would come in the next day and want the same thing. So listening to what the people want is, I think, a good approach. I'm not a businessman. I don't run a shop, so I know they have their challenges.
But the reason that I contacted the association in the first place is I really feel that there's a role for modelers to play in an association like that. I think the modeler viewpoint is important. And what I'm hearing from the people that I'm talking about in the association, I'm talking to, is many of the problems that they have are exactly the same problems that we have. If they can't get a product, we can't get a product. If the price of their cost is going way sky high, our cost is going way sky high. And it seems to me we're in this together, the modeler and the hobby shop owner, much more so than maybe the manufacturers are. But I do see that the modeler has a role they need to play in the manufacturers. Well, Nutrax is a member of the Hobby Manufacturers Association because there's a place for us there as a nonprofit. There's a place that they have set aside and said, yeah, you can belong to our association and contribute best you can. And I have a proposal that I've made to that association, and I'm hopeful it'll be approved. Well, I'd like to be able to join the National Retail Hobby Shop Association, but that association doesn't have a place for us, the modeler. It doesn't have a real place for the small manufacturer. So while I support the local hobby shops on this show best we can, that's why I started the series of inviting hobby shop owners to be a part of our show. And I support the manufacturers best I can. That's why we do the build-alongs the way we do it. That's why we concentrate only on having the small manufacturers on the show. It just seems to me that we're all in this together. And for that association to really prosper and really have a voice, the modelers need to be there. Not just model railroaders, but modelers in whatever you're doing, whether it's airplanes, cars, boats, whatever. There needs to be a role for the modelers in these associations.
Well, just a comment from North Carolina. We're fortunate in that we do have a hobby shop within an hour who is taking Mark's approach very strong, and it has for a number of years, where we call in and he will order weekly from Walthers or a couple of other suppliers that he does business. And we have always promoted that operation by word of mouth, either at train shows, which we have. We now have 2 a year in the local area, big train shows, but also within our NMRA regional and meetings. There's always word of mouth. So I think it's the duty of the modeler to mention, hey, we have a local hobby shop, and maybe it's an hour, maybe 2 hours drive, but you can pick up the phone, you can talk to the owner. He's very knowledgeable. He's an NMRA member, and that model is, the business model is excellent. And I think that's how we as modelers can promote that and to say, here's a guy who's knowledgeable. He's going to find the parts, be it scratch building or cars, locomotives, structures, kits, whatever you need, paint and supplies. He can order them for you and call ahead. He'll let them know when they're in stock. And one fellow, because we have some during COVID modelers that were housebound, he would order the parts, he'd get them in from Walthers or whatever supplier, and then he would drop ship them to members' houses. And so we have a number of folks that couldn't get out during the COVID, and yet our local hobby shop was able to get the parts. So we supported him, and the local hobby shop member owner supported us. It's really got, like you said, Jim, it's got to be a handshake, because we've got to help each other in this.
Because we're in it together. I keep thinking that, and for the association to say, no, we don't really want modelers to be a member. I don't understand that. I mean, it's to me, it's just good business for the modeler to be able to push the hobby shop, and for the hobby shop to want the modeler's business, because the modeler is the guy that's going to be in there 12 months out of the year. He's not just in it for the Christmas party. He's there in June and July and August. So that to me should be the kind of customer that the hobby shop owner would be after. And that's why I keep trying to push the association to find some way, some place for the modeler viewpoint or voice in their association, because I agree totally with what you're saying about the word of mouth and promoting your local hobby shop. That's why, to me, having a hobby shop owner on our show, having the NMRA superintendent locally on our show, all of that ties together in my mind. Because if everybody's going down the same road and singing the same song, then everybody's going to benefit from that. The NMRA benefits, the hobby shop owner benefits, most importantly, the modeler benefits, small manufacturer benefits. I don't see a loser in this.
Can I add?
Yeah.
When we say modelers too, I think if we expanded our descriptions, so there are a number of different fields of modeling that are very talented. Foam modelers, gaming modelers, and I look at a lot of their work for inspiration and tips also. And hobby shops would also, I know that my local hobby shop has had to expand and push a lot more aircraft modeling and to help keep going. So we as railroad modelers, if we expand our horizons too and can draw in from other areas, I think that would help the modeling group in general, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I totally agree with you. That's why, again, I write for these two magazines, S-Scale and O-Scale Railroading, but I don't always write about model railroad. I've written about the gaming. I've written about the 28 millimeter figures that the Wild West people produce and use in their dioramas, and the different gaming situations that are out there. The military modelers I've talked about, the artists, some of the work that they do on the figures that they paint, the shading that they do, and how they go about trying to figure out what color to use and so forth. To me, that's areas that model railroading can benefit from. So I see a wide range of different hobbies that can impact model railroaders if model railroaders are just familiar with them. And in a lot of cases in the past, you're a model railroader and those are the people you talk to. period.
Agreed. And I do dabble a little bit in the military, 148 scale modeling. And, but my primary interest is in trains. But without expanding your research to other mediums, I think that you can't grow. And the foam modelers their creations are absolutely stunning. What they can create, and I've used a lot of their techniques in scenery and creating that way. So it may be an opportunity for expansion of subjects. I just wanted to kind of throw that up there a little bit, and maybe some future down the road that may be able to bring in other model interests into the group that would help promote within the model field, but also with the retail and the hobby shops.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I'm open to anybody that would like to come on the show and talk about the other hobbies. The hobby shop, one of the things when I originally joined the Hobby Manufacturers Association, they said, well, all of us are not model railroaders. I said, I don't care. I don't care if you're a hobby manufacturer. I have an interest in you because it may well be that what you're producing has some benefit that I haven't even considered for my model railroad. Because in the past, I've been a very narrowly focused person on model railroading, and in many cases, O-scale model railroading, and in some cases, O-scale traction model railroading. And you can't get much narrower than that.
Jim, I would like to throw out too that on YouTube, the military guys, they are getting into kits that are completely 3D printed at this point. The Night Shift, which is one of the sites that I follow because he is a true artist on the weathering and rusting of those models, the military models. He does specifically tanks, but he has just recently completed and weathered a 3D printed kit. So it looks to me, since the military guys are a little bit ahead of us, that we're starting to move into that 3D printing and kits being actually produced from 3D printing manufacturers. So that's something else to start thinking about for all of us, that that might be a different thing, because that's going to require some other slightly different techniques than what we're used to, because that resin is a little bit different to work with.
You're exactly right. And in fact, we had one person on the show already that showed you the 3D printed trolleys that he was having made for him. And the person that printed them, we had him on the show talking about how he went about printing his 3D trolleys. Well, who would have thought that you could print a 3D trolley model, put some trucks on it, and run it on your train? I mean, it just, I've never heard of anything like that before. So that was fascinating to me. We're going to have a manufacturer in March, middle of March, I think it is, from the Hobby Manufacturers Association. He's vice president of that association and owns a company. They recently bought out the molds and all the tooling from Revell. So a lot of the stuff that Revell produced back in the 50s, 60s, they own the rights to that now, as I understand it. So there's so much going on in hobbies that are not directly model railroad hobbies that I find extremely interesting and potentially very favorable for model railroaders.
May I add to that, Jim?
I'm sorry?
May I add to that?
Yeah.
I've been involved with the 3D printing for quite a while now. And some of you may know the name Les Davis and the Bachmann trench locomotive in ON30.
Mhm.
I was in on the the initial designing with Les on that program. And that's a perfect example of a couple modelers getting together with an idea, getting the 3D printing together. Les took that locomotive that was created. I designed the cab and the boiler, sent him the files online. He printed them, refined everything, basically fixed all my mistakes. And I believe he won the best locomotive at the at the National Narrow Gauge Convention with it,
Uh-huh.
and created enough interest that Bachmann decided to create the ON30 trench locomotive. So 3D printing does have a future, I believe, and we may be a little slow to take up on it, but it's a valuable tool, a totally valuable tool, and I see a lot of growth in that area.
I do too, and I've had manufacturers contact me because Earl Hackett is going to do on our show a 3D printing series for us. And Earl is going to start with a free CAD program, and take us through. This is how you get it on your computer. This is how you download it, and start at that level, and then take us through the whole process. And then he's going to end up building a bridge out of the parts that he creates from the 3D process. And I think that's going to open a lot of people's eyes, because I've had manufacturers call me up and say, well, we heard you were going to do that, but could you do something in 2D rather than 3D? Because we're having trouble getting the parts cut right. Well, I called Earl and I said, Earl, can we do that? He said, don't worry about it, because he said, the program I'm going to use, the first part of it is 2D. Well, they can use that part for their cutting. And then we go to 3D, and that's what I'm going to be talking about primarily. So we're going to try to kill two birds with one stone with Earl's presentation to help both the manufacturers who want to learn how to do the detailed cutting on cutting machines, as well as how to do the CAD programming for 3D printing. And that, from what I've been told, that's the major detriment to more and more 3D printed items, is people aren't familiar with CAD and don't know how to use the CAD part of it. It's not the printing, that's kind of turn a switch on once you've got the CAD program written. It's getting the CAD program written to put in the machine is the hard part.
Agreed. There are a number of different programs out there. I currently use one of the older programs. I'm cheap. I've used it for 10 plus years. I use SketchUp. It was a free to source on the internet.
Mhm.
You could probably fill a whole show on what programs are available and what are good for beginners. I think I don't want to move away from the original hobby shop idea, but I believe that 3D printing is kind of the way to fill the void of parts, and allowing the modeler to create that specific model, that specific train. And it just can't find the correct word, sorry. It is the future, I do believe it, and it's very exciting, but having the support of the base model, that's where I think we all have to continue to look at the fundamentals.
Well, as the younger people get into the hobby, won't the problem with creating the CAD get less and less?
I agree completely, because my background is in engineering, and I learned how to. I sat there with a drafting board and a lead holder for many years, and then got it in. But the younger folks, I have a great nephew who is 11. He is already doing 3D CAD because his dad happens to have a 3D printer. And you're right, Jim, the future will definitely be younger people will be so oriented towards CAD and graphics I mean, they're not all playing video games. Some of them are actually doing creative work with drafting programs. This young fellow is fairly familiar with SketchUp, and he's trying to talk his dad into buying the AutoCAD version, which is very expensive for a kid to be playing with, but he wants to go that direction. But my third bird to kill is I'm going to learn from this 11-year-old how to get good CAD drawings, because I am going to take my own 3D printed design, and it's going to happen to be for a rail car that I have measured and photographed and climbed all over. And that is going to be my scratch built motive power board. So I'm trying real hard to learn that, because if you do the 3D design yourself and then even have it printed by somebody else, you have scratch built a motive power entry. And if you can get 87.5 points for it, that counts towards my AP in motive power. And
Absolutely.
motive power has lately been one of the least achieved achievement certificates in all of the NMRA. Very few people can have the soldering skills, the machining skills. Like when we grew up, we put together brass as best we could. And yeah, we soldered one end of the brass locomotive and the other end of it fell off when we didn't heat sink it enough. You've been there, Jim. You know what that's like. Younger people do not have those skills, but they have the CAD skills where they can scratch build a 3D model by doing their own CAD program. So,
You know what? Let me throw this out and get a reaction. I don't know whether Mark's still here or not, but maybe he can react too. What is there a role for the hobby shop in having the 3D printer where people can send their CAD to the hobby shop and have it printed?
Yes, in fact, we're looking into that. I've been looking into 3D printers recently, and there's a couple of products I want to make, that I want to manufacture. So I think 3D printing definitely has a place.
Because it seems to me as more and more people are able to produce the CAD drawing, instead of having to go out and spend significant dollars for their own 3D printer, if they could go to their hobby shop or send the CAD to the hobby shop and then have the hobby shop print it, and then they can go to the hobby shop and pick up their parts, and no telling what else they'll buy while they're there. To me, that's got some potential, because
Yes, it does.
the hobby shop can spread the cost of that machine over a lot of customers, where individuals have to find a place in their home to put the machine.
not to mention the resin printers are kind of stinky and they got to have nasty chemicals with them. And it's not something I want when I've got the grandkids around.
Like if you
But I
could,
would
like that
love-
hobby shop that's 2 hours from you, if you could, by the internet, send your CAD drawing to them, and then the next time you're up there, pick up your pieces.
Absolutely. I'd come pick up my parts, and who knows what else I'd find, because he's got a whole pegboard full of neat stuff. So when I'm picking up my 3D printed parts, I'm buying some other stuff there.
Yep.
So the challenge with that is, to some extent with filament printing, you might be able to do it. But especially with resin printing, the art of resin printing is building the supports and all the things for a printer. And you'd almost have to move that to the shop. So you'd have to provide them, with basically an STL or whatever the file you wanted printed, and the shop would have to do that. And I think you'd find by the time you got done that the labor costs of doing that would probably be very equivalent to Shapeways.
I do have a comment. I was I went to our local Mono Railroad shop, which is Credit Valley, and pick up some stuff, and they didn't have it. It was paint and stuff. So I just went around the corner to another hobby shop, which is called Great Hobbies, not Great Lakes. And and they had a 3D printer set right on top of their counter. Now they're more for RC and all that kind of stuff, but they had 3 of them on the counters. All 3 of them were different, and he had 1 or 2 of them functioning, making parts right there. So right on the counter of the hobby shop, and I thought, wow, that's good. It just shows that they can do this stuff for people, and that. So that was a pretty nice little demonstration I wasn't even looking for. But yes, 3D printing is right there, right available. It's good.
Excuse me, where was this located again?
Mississauga, Ontario. And it was
Okay,
called.
thank you. Just a bit of a drive, but
Yeah, it might be,
maybe
eh?
looking
For me-
somewhere south.
For
of the
me,
Mason.
20 minutes.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
assuming they were filament printers. Or were they resin printers?
Yeah,
They're the
one
ones that-
was filament,
the-
one was some sort of type of resin. I didn't get into it too much with
okay.
the guy.
Interesting.
But yeah, the thing is, I guess we're very fortunate in Mississauga. We got Credit Valley Mono Railroad Shop, which carries everything, and you can do what our other gentleman was talking about. You can order stuff online. You can go there and order it, and that kind of stuff. And then we also have a place called Hobby, which is RC, again, crossover modeling, and also Great Hobbies. And they're all kind of like 10 minutes from each other. So I guess we're very, very lucky in that response. So I didn't realize what a good hobby area I live in. So there you go.
Anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a quick question for Rick and Maureen. Are you guys home
Yeah.
and are you going to be there for the next week or 2?
Absolutely. We're done traveling.
What, you don't like coming to BC anymore?
Well, for those that don't know, we were out in Victoria visiting our granddaughter and our great granddaughter, but we were in all the disasters in the states of emergencies that were on out there. We were stranded on the side of the road for 6 nights. We were stranded in Victoria for 5 weeks and could not get out. Every highway was closed. Jim knows this story already. And the only way we could get out was by ferry from Victoria. So we went to Port Angeles, Washington, and home through the States. And if you've ever tried to cross the mountains in the winter, I-90's closed, I-84 closed, I-70 closed, all of them were closed. We finally got down to I-40, which is just above LA. And even though we got through the snow, we got across the country and home. We were away for over 2 months, and it got to be the worst trip we've ever been on. I wanted to talk to Mark for just a minute. Okay, I'm Rick Hunter. We own Hunter Line.
Okay.
We do shows. We've done every show on the West Coast, and we do about 20 shows a year somewhere in the United States or Canada. We've done all those shows.
Yeah, I've
on
seen
the
your
West
demonstrations at some of the shows.
Coast. Oh, great.
I've seen your
great.
demonstrations, so.
So and I want everybody else to know this too. As a manufacturer, we do our list price, and that is it. At a show, we don't discount everything. Like, we keep it at our list price. If we, at the beginning of the show, we go around to see if any of our dealers are there. If any of our dealers are there, we are supporting them 100%. We will do the sales pitch for this, that, and the other, one of our products, and then we'll walk you down to our dealer's place to make the sale there. Because what people don't understand is that even though you've made the sale, we've done the sales pitch to help you out, you're going to buy again from us. So it all works out, okay? We
Right.
learned, we've been in business 28 years and we learned if you discount your products, you might as well shoot yourself in the foot because there's no.
Yep, I agree with that. That's a great philosophy, and so few manufacturers follow that.
I didn't know that, okay? I just thought that was the way it was done.
No,
Yeah,
it's not. It's really not. It's unbelievable, some of the stories that you hear, Rick. Seriously.
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
backstabbing many times. I had one manufacturer that I took a whole booth worth of their product to a show. So
Yeah.
that's 3 tables at one of the major shows, cost me $600 for the booth. And then him and his wife were over there selling everything on their booth, the exact same stuff I had, at 40% off list.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it got pretty ugly, I'll say that. So, but
No,
unfortunately, that's happened a lot. And I'm a unique store where I travel to a lot of these shows. A lot of these guys who sell to dealers like myself never anticipate that the actual dealer's going to show up in their backyard at a show.
Sure.
I can't imagine anything 40% off list. I mean, that's
Yeah.
we're like Rick and Marine. It's list is list, and that's
Oh yeah,
so you gotta support the guys you help out. So.
right. And this one had done it to me before, and I even called him and said, "Okay, are you going to the show? Because I'm going, and I'm not going to take product if you're going to show up." And he goes, "Oh no, I'm not going to the show." And I said, "Okay, I'm taking a whole booth worth," and I show up, and there he is.
So we find with some of our dealers, because we promote them at the show, they might run out of stock. Well, quick, we just take it over to them.
Oh yeah, that's
We
great.
stock their shelf right away.
That's
We
great.
did.
That's a great way to do it. Oh,
We
that's
did,
We did the same with Mount Albert. We never
Sure.
discounted at shows. We always charged full list.
That's good to know.
Anyways, I just wanted to get my 2 cents worth in on those shows.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk to you.
All right.
But Rick, I think it's important for the small manufacturer to understand what the hobby shop is saying about this.
Oh, I
Because
understand.
while you know, I'm trying to promote you by the build-alongs and so forth and giving the airtime and that kind of stuff and promoting you, at the same time, the hobby shop needs the promotion, needs the help, the same as the manufacturers do. And that's why I say, to me, everybody is in this together. The manufacturers have a major role to play, but so do the hobby shops and so do the modelers. And the modelers, you know, if they keep looking for the super duper discount all the time, that's not going to help anybody ultimately.
Exactly.
When we were selling to retail outlets for Mount Albert, the only way it worked, and we did it with Rick up in Canada, and we had a distributor in Lompoc, which is that in California?
Yes.
Yeah, we had a distributor in Lompoc, and the only way it would work with such a specialty item as stripwood was to go through a distributor, because individual hobby shops could not stock enough, nor could we afford to send 3 packages of 1x2s if it was totally cost prohibitive to do that. So it goes back to your idea of not necessarily a co-op, but I'm thinking of something as special as stripwood. You need a central location that the surrounding hobby shops can draw from.
But you know, it seems to me that if a group of manufacturers could get together and place an order with Mount Albert, that might benefit all of the small manufacturers.
One of the things we do is when clubs order from our website, okay, this guy orders it and this guy orders it and this guy, we go back to them and we say, look, put a list up where your club meets, and everybody, and this is what we did with Mount Albert stuff, is list down what you want, you put in one order, you have one set of shipping, and then everybody distributes their own stuff when they get there. We've done that for years, and we still do it.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's something that we could talk to the clubs and the region, the divisions around the country could do the same
Sure.
thing for their members, which would frankly be a real asset to the members because the reduction in the shipping costs they'd have to pay, and a reason to go to the local meetings to pick up the supplies.
Absolutely.
So everybody wins. The NMRA wins, the modeler wins, the manufacturer wins.
See, our shipping is very much different than anybody else. We have a flat rate shipping. This is for retail now. We have a flat rate shipping of $20 US. And that's whether you buy 1 bottle or 100 bottles. So when the club get together like that, and maybe they order, I don't know, 20 bottles, well, they only have one $20 shipping. Works great.
That to me that makes all the sense in the world.
Sure.
Now, if other manufacturers do the same thing, that would have to be a benefit to them too.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
the person who buys 1 bottle and it's $20 shipping, they give me a phone call usually and say, what? Why? And no.
No, I understand what
the guy who does 10.
I understand exactly what you're saying. And you know, a lot of people in the club may build the same kit, but so what? They can always modify it. They can always make it their own with the details.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
like Adam's talking about.
Exactly.
So that really no two kits come out the same way necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. We've learned that from the builder logs.
Yeah, I know. Anybody else?
It's quiet without Clark.
I know. Yeah, he'll be back next week, so he'll liven things up again. Well, if nobody else has got anything, then I think I'm going to say goodnight to you, and thanks so much for being here. Really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Most importantly, hope you learned something.
Good night.
Good night, people.
I did.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. No problem. Good talking to you.
Talk to you tomorrow,
Alrighty.
Mark. Bye-bye.
Okay, sounds good, Jim.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Yeah. Bye.